Hey y'all, I'm Byron.
And I'm Margaret, and we'd like to welcome you back to the Beyond I Do podcast, where we discuss how we've successfully navigated the past 25 years of marital bliss.
We are not marriage counselors, nor are we mental health professionals. We are simply sharing what has worked in our marriage. Now, on to the show.
In this episode, we'll be talking about growing up and growing old together. We began with expectations of what we wanted as individuals in a marriage, and then quickly we learned that it was not all about I. We had to learn each other's expectations and make adjustments for one another. So here we go.
Before I married this lovely woman I called my wife, I was a young man who knew I wanted to be married at some point in my life. My parents had a good marriage as far as I knew, and I had a few family members who had long marriages. My ideas of marriage were pretty simple. I was going to go off to school and finish college and find a good woman after my successful career popped off. I was going to have the house already, and she was going to move in with me. She was going to have a successful career as well, and we were going to have 2 kids, a boy and a girl, and life was going to be perfect. That was my plan. Well, some of that actually happened, just not the way I planned it. Maybe I should have written it down.
All right, so we decided that this episode we would break it up into decades. We'd start with our 20s and move to 30s and 40s. So in my 20s, I was a little bit of a wild child. Started in my teenage years and kind of progressed. I was always the one that was ready to go. I wanted to travel, I wanted to go out, I wanted to party, I wanted to have fun. And for the most part, I did a lot of that. I struggled as far as with self-esteem. I struggled with my weight. Now looking back at pictures of myself then, I'm thinking, what fat was I finding that I thought I needed to get rid of?
I tried to tell you,
but that was then. But I struggled with my weight, with my looks and appearance and self-esteem. So a lot of that stuff, though, now I'm learning stems from childhood traumas that I experienced. I was really good with suppressing emotions and keeping everything in, and I would just keep going. I felt like, if there was something to be done, it needed to be done. So I couldn't really worry about if something was bothering me or if something had hurt my feelings. I just kind of had to keep going. In terms of marriage, I knew that I wanted to be married. I would watch like the black movies from back then.
Yeah.
They'd have these friend groups, and the group of friends would get together. They have dinner parties, or they would go on trips. And I was gonna have a group of friends like that we were close friends. We would travel and have dinner parties with music playing in the background. I was going to have a career. I didn't know what, but it was going to be successful. And then I would meet a man who was equally as successful, and we would date, and we would go on trips with our friend group, and then we'd eventually get married and start to build together. I had no desire to stay in our hometown. I wanted to move. I wanted to go far away. I wanted to be somewhere where I just had to start fresh, and I didn't know anyone. And that did not happen. That didn't happen, but we're here, and we met.
Yep.
And so that's when life took over.
Yep. All right. So in my 20s, I thought I had an understanding of what it was to be a man and married. I thought I had it. I saw it, but never experienced. So I thought I had it together. In my mind, I had it together anyway. So I thought it would be easy since we were good friends and the workload would be light, you know.
Because you didn't know what it was.
I didn't know. I didn't know. I struggled with my identity from who I was before and who I was at that point. I knew I wanted to be married to you, but I really didn't know how. I just started doing what I thought was good and right, oftentimes missing the mark, as you point that out at times.
Whatever. Whatever.
All I know is my cool ass best friend was now my wife and the mother of my child. And I wanted to build a life with this woman the best way I could. I wasn't in tip-top shape physically, you know. I think high school,
now
150 pounds maybe.
You were looking, there was a picture recently that we found.
There's some pictures like that.
And we were, even your child was commenting on how small you were, so.
Yeah. But I was full of energy, and I became a doer of a lot of hobbies. I'm still not as energetic as I used to be.
You would never tell.
Like, it was a time where every Saturday, and you remember that, or Friday, whatever, I would wash both cars. Every Saturday, no matter what. Vacuum, all that.
Okay.
Cut grass and all that
okay.
stuff. But
fair enough.
Maybe a month or so go by.
And what did you do this morning?
What did I do this morning? I worked on the car.
Exactly.
I mean, you know.
Exactly. You still have a lot of, you have more energy than I have when it comes to things like that anyways. Huh?
It's more determination than energy when you get older. It's a little bit more determination. But
touche.
I had created a lot of hobbies, and that helped to create who I was as a husband and father. I sought out to learn all that I could and work hard to take care of my family to the best of my ability. And it was a learning curve, but you know.
I think I brought this up in another episode, but it fits with this. Do you remember saying something about how hard it is to be a father? Or
yeah.
And
it was, I think it was the last episode, if I'm not mistaken.
I can't remember either that one or maybe the parenting one. And
I think it was the last one.
Now then I said something to you because I was angry, because I'm like I didn't have a manual that I was hiding either.
Yeah.
We had to learn and grow together.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to both of our credit, he's still alive.
Yep.
He is still alive.
He still made it.
Yep. So in terms of our marriage, I was 23. You were 22 when we got married.
Yep.
As we've mentioned, we got married, and a week later I gave birth to our son. We were friends, so I think a lot of the adjustment was easier than some people may have.
Yeah.
Even if you've been in a relationship with someone for several years and then you get married, there's just something different about being friends with somebody and then letting it grow into a relationship.
Yeah, it is.
So I think that helped with some things, but at the same time, I still had all of these suppressed emotions. I had a lot of issues with self-worth and self-esteem. And I think that stuff would come out. And so I always had some type of barrier or wall up.
And I think the fact that we were friends, I know for me, that helped me stay and fight. You know, it was harder to give up because I didn't want, if we were to end, I didn't want us to not be friends.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So,
and that was something that in the beginning, I don't know how much of the beginning we shared, but in the beginning, when we moved into the apartment together, that was in October.
Yeah.
And I told you then because you and the ex were still...
You still communicate.
Something. And I told you then, if you want to just be co-parents and roommates, I'm fine with that. But we just have to be honest about what it is. If we're going to be together, then we need to be honest about that. Because I knew that beyond anything else, you were going to be a phenomenal father. And like you said, I didn't want to lose you as a friend. So I was willing to... Now, I don't know if you were going to have my child around her. That's a whole different issue. But luckily we didn't have to.
Good thing we
didn't have to deal with that
because that would have been.
It would have been an episode of Dateline.
Yeah. But now I can't say that. In our 20s, our sex life is great.
Whose isn't in their 20s?
I mean, that energy.
Yeah.
It was a lot easier because our child was smaller, so, put it in the bed, Then as he grew, we had to make sure we locked the door. They would be busted there.
And traumatized for life.
Yep. So that's our 20s. All right, on to our 30s.
So, for me, I don't know if you remember, but the year I turned 30, I was fine. It was the next year when I turned 31, I had a little meltdown. I don't know what happened in that year. Well, I do know there was a class reunion coming up.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't plan on going anyways, but I felt like I didn't want to go. I just didn't feel good enough. Something. I don't know. I wasn't satisfied with a lot of things.
Well, I think I remember talking about it. I think it had to do with where we were, because you wanted to be further career-wise and,
right,
status-wise and whatever. And, we fought against ideally where we wanted to be versus where we were.
Right, and that's what the reality had started to set in and take over the fantasy. Because in the fantasy, we were not at that point, at that age.
Right.
So at this point, as far as physically, I still struggled with my weight, especially after having kids. But there was a point during this time, I was working in a very stressful setting, and over the course of that year, I lost 50 pounds without trying. So that was a plus, but not how I lost it. I started to, at that point, I felt like a real grown-up. I felt like, in your 20s, as you're getting older, mid to late 20s, you start feeling yourself. But once you hit 30, I was like, oh, we're real grown-ups now.
Yeah.
So in terms of, my mental and emotional state at that time, my mom and I were in conflict off and on, which that's something that occurred throughout my life. But I think at that time, it was almost like we were butting heads. The more I would assert myself as an adult, the more she would try and undermine those things in some way.
Yeah.
So that was stressful for me, and I tried to deal with that myself. So in trying to keep you or the kids out of it, I think that my way of suppressing it ended up making it come out in different ways with you and the kids.
Right.
So it affected, other relationships that I had. The kids were older, so parenting changed. It became more demanding at that time because that's when, they're involved in extracurricular things
and stuff.
So we were doing that. I started teaching at that time. So I did start to feel better about contributing to the household and also having something that was mine, that I could feel pride in, that I did. But even though I did go back, or go to work at that point, I still had an appreciation and a love for you, in the fact that you didn't say, okay, the kids are in school, you need to use your degree and go get a job.
Right.
It was a choice that I made, and throughout the years I have stayed home other times, and that has not been an issue, and I've always appreciated that, because that's something that everyone didn't have.
I remember when you said something about teaching. I remember you were staying at home then, and that was when we were in our first house, and you were at the computer, and you said, I applied for a position in the school system. And I was like, what? And I don't think we ever discussed it to the point where I made you do anything, because you were, I think you were keeping one of our cousins' kids or something like that. And
I can't remember, but
you were doing stuff at home, so
right.
It wasn't like you were just sitting at home not doing anything. But I just remember, you telling me that, and I was surprised, but I was, supportive of whatever you decide to do.
Yep.
And I just figured I was gonna do my part regardless, 'cause
right.
I was just high. That was just my makeup.
Yep.
Yep. So for me, in our 30s, I think we can't remember where we were when our 30s started. But we were traveling along. The kids were older. Had we built that house at that time, or?
We were
2010. I would have been 32 or 33. So it was 2010 when we built the house. Yeah. But at any rate, I know we were living our life, and adjusting to the kids being older, sports and things like that. I know for me, I planted myself around some good men that we were going to church with, and that helped me tremendously as far as I wanted to be around these guys because I looked at their marriages as being ideal, and they were, we were pretty much all in the same boat, working, raising children. And it helped to have those gentlemen to talk to, coming from a more spiritual standpoint. Somebody that was going to be like, if I came to one of them and was like, hey man, this lady at the job keep checking me, what you think I should do? If I'd asked some guys, they probably been like, you need to go on and do what you need to do, man. Don't tell the wife nothing. But these guys, they would have been like, nah, man, I don't advise that, because that's, it's going to bring this problem, that problem. So, just having those guys in my life, that helped me shape more of who I wanted to be, because that's what I desired anyway. And, especially after losing my dad, I thought, well, that was, at that time, I was like, well, that's my guide, on life. So he was gone. And I felt like I didn't have anybody to look at or go to for advice. So that helped me out in that situation. So those brotherhoods really helped. And, we had our issues, but I think that helped me deal with our issues as well. And, as far as kids and all that stuff. And I remember by that time I had been working at my current job that was the longest job I ever held down.
Yeah.
And that job with your career, has allowed us to buy homes, travel, here and abroad, drive whatever we wanted to drive at that time.
Yeah.
I was able to buy me a motorcycle
and another one.
3 of them.
Another one. Yeah.
So I mean, I think 30s were essential. You know, I've always heard about the 7 or 10 year itch, you know, that a lot of marriages have. And
I think we did that earlier.
yeah, we did that.
I think that came earlier for us because when I was pregnant with the girl.
Yeah. Yep.
And then in the second home that we bought.
Yeah.
So that came early for us.
That came early.
And so at this point, we were more settled into the marriage.
Yeah, definitely. Wherever we were spiritually, we were at the same point. Mm-hmm. Maybe within a few months together, or, you know, whatever. We was at that same point all the time, and that helped us tremendously. So
I think, and now in this discussion, looking back and thinking back, like I said, we had those bumps early, and it was almost like preparation for what was to come, because the things that came after that, the things that we went through trying to help others. Our oldest, who is adopted, we had issues with her. We would open ourselves up and help people, and that backfired on us several times. So it was almost like, let's go ahead and get this part out of the way. And then those things happened. So luckily we had been through the other stuff in terms of testing our commitment to each other.
Right.
And so, you know, when you've been through that stuff, and now we're going through this, all I have to lean on is you, because nobody else is going through this right now.
And nobody else. We were doing out of the norm things. Right. That a lot of people couldn't relate to. I remember when I mentioned something about adopting, and I had an aunt who was working in children's services in her home county. And I remember her saying, y'all gonna adopt a child? Why y'all doing that? You know? So, you know, even though she was in that field, I couldn't necessarily go to her and you know, tell her things that was going on, because it was like, you know, you always have that I told you so type thing. I told y'all not to do that. But, you know, being able to lean on each other during those times, it really helped us grow closer as a unit. And, you know, solidify us as, like, you know, and people knew that, hey, them two there. And if folks tried, they did try, but, you know, we held tight. And another note, that dang sex life was still fantastic. I just want to put that out there.
So moving on. All right. So that brings us to our 40s, where we are for
over the hill.
At least a couple of more years.
Over the hill, as they say.
I know. So 31 was hard for me. 40 was a challenge for me. And I don't even know how to, and I still don't know. It's a very surreal feeling when I sit now and think about my age. It's hard to wrap my head around even now. But as we moved into our 40s, for me, I have always been kind of nonchalant about things. I've never really taken a whole lot of stock in what other people think. And when I turned 40, it's like that magnified, but in a good way, because the less I'm concerned with what other people think, the more confidence I have in myself. So that was a good thing. I still have the struggles with weight and things like that, but it's different now. I'm learning to accept and embrace myself, whether I feel chunky or not that particular day. So that the mindset is different.
Yeah.
The aging part, the physical changes. I explained to one of my friends, when you turn 40, it's just different. Like, it's nothing for me to wake up and there's a part of my body throbbing that I didn't realize you could have a pain in. Or I'm walking and like the third toe starts aching. Why is the third toe aching? That's not a load-bearing, weight-bearing toe. So those types of things. And she says, we're only 2 years apart. It can't be that different. Well, lo and behold, 2 years later when she turned 40, she had to come back and let me know you were right.
Exactly.
To see like the changes in my face and the laugh lines and the little crow's feet and stuff, it sometimes is almost jarring. Like, you look in the mirror expecting to see something other than what you see, and then you think about, oh yeah, I'm getting older. Yep. So that has been I don't want to say a struggle. It's an adjustment. It's a definite adjustment because on the inside I still feel very youthful. Yeah. And then there are things that will occur, and I'm like, okay, I might be youthful, but I ain't young.
Your body will remind you.
Yeah, I ain't young. The year after I turned 40, in fact, 3 days after my 41st birthday is when my mom passed. And so that has been definitely had a negative impact on things. Yeah. But luckily, being of an age where you're more self-aware and there's more wisdom that comes with that age. Yeah. You know, I'm in therapy. I'm dealing with things. I'm learning how to deal with those emotions that I used to just press down. And I think all of those things come together and create a level of confidence. Yeah. Even things like the podcast, the YouTube channel, those are things that 10, 15 years ago, you would not have had me sitting here doing this. Right. So it's just a different feeling of independence and things like that. The kids are grown, so our parenting role has shifted from parenting children to parenting adults and helping them learn how to cope. So that's been different and good, and then there's a security in our relationship. Yeah. To where we can sit here and talk about the good and the bad, and I'm still comfortable enough knowing that, you know, we've been together for long enough that it's going to take more than a little shake for either of us to go anywhere. So that has been a plus side to it. Yeah. And I know for me, it's like when I say that, well, I've been married 25 years, and it's like wow, 25 years, like we've been together longer than we've been apart. Right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like we over half our lives together. Yep. And just in living life with that experience in itself, all of the newness that was in our life, the new challenges, the new, turning 25, turning 30, turning 40, all those challenges, and having you to be there every step of the way, that has been definitely beneficial. And I kind of think about those things sometimes, like, man, this has been one heck of a ride, but it's been a great ride. Yep. It has been. Yep. But well, we've had our issues as a couple, and we still have minor issues. I don't think we ever fought yelling and screaming. We have. We have. We have.
Oh, we have. Well, I mean, I know
I
we
can
didn't
count
fight in
on
front of the kids.
No, the
Never
kids
did
would.
that.
I can count on one hand. We've had maybe 3 or 4 big.
Yeah, but it was never like a physical
No, because
attack or anything.
if you put your hands on me,
I knew you was crazy.
Okay.
So.
Yes. Yes. But yeah, we've had maybe about 3 or 4 that I can think of.
And I know you weren't there when my dad died, but you were there when my mom passed too, as well as I was there when your mom passed, and that was a change in life that was. It was hard, but it was great to have you to, be there and understand, and understand. So that was an eye opener, and we went through the pandemic together. 2020, well, I still worked.
I was about to say, and I think that
for me.
I think that
we were essential.
Yes, and I'm so glad you were essential because
I don't know if I could
with
just sit around
everything
like
right, with everything closed like it was, and then of course that's when everybody was flocking to Lowe's. That would have driven you crazy because that's your second home.
Yep.
And those people were invading your second home.
Exactly.
So you wouldn't have been able to get there and get stuff to occupy you. But even when you were off, we would find things to do. Like we built the swing out there and we did the shutters because even on your off days, it would get to be a bit much for you.
Yeah.
And I think that now me, on the other hand.
That was right up your alley.
Yes, yes. And when all the retail places started doing the, where you could order online and drive and pick it up, not even have to get out. What? That was like dream come true. Me and the girl, we would find recipes and we would cook and bake and we'd go for our walks around the city, and it was wonderful for me. But I could see how that would have not been a good thing for you.
Well, it definitely would have having something to do that helped, even in times when I was not working. That helped, and then you being there, being able to have that time so that we could spend. That was good too. So I mean, we made it through that.
Yeah.
It was all good, and she's still my best friend, y'all. Still my best friend through the pandemic and all that. Let me see, 40. It's been difficult for me getting older because I know health-wise, I hadn't been up to par 100%. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and then that was, kind of a not a life-altering thing, but it was kind of like a wake-up call. Like, man, shoot, I gotta start taking care of myself. And then, you always told me, like, look, you can't leave me with these kids by myself.
No.
But, having that going on and experiencing other health issues that, just waking up with pains and, oh man, like, it was like 40. I remember it, because I work around a bunch of older gentlemen. So I'm listening to their discussions over time. And I'm thinking, dang, man, don't tell me that's going to happen. I said, yep, that's going to happen, y'all. It's going to happen. It's going to happen at some point in time. And when it happened, it was like, God, dog, boy. But, I think psychologically, it helped knowing people that have been through, and it helped that, because I was kind of worried about you. Not that I was worried about you, but, I mean, when you have stuff like, hit your 40s and your tool don't work, or your tool is soft. Just putting it out there. I mean, it is what it is.
Everything comes back to that. Do you realize everything comes back to that for you?
That's a part of manhood. But So that was kind of like a hurtful experience. And I know I didn't have to worry about you, but it was kind of like, gave you that less of a man type feeling psychologically. But, saw the doctor, got the medication, so yeah, we good. And I don't mind telling everybody that. Because that is what it is. That's 40.
You might want to clarify the medication, though. I mean...
testosterone shots is what I'm taking. Take those every 2 weeks. And my wife administers them to me. She shoots me in my booty. Just that in itself, I got my home nurse right here. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, wow. That was TMI for me, but okay, go ahead.
All right. Other than the dysfunction issues.
Oh, my God.
There are other health issues that can arise, blood pressure issues. You're younger, you didn't have to worry about these things, but, you just hit those 40s and things start to happen.
I think, too, dealing with or thinking about the things that your parents have been or have
issues,
right,
things like
so
that. Yeah.
I was always very aware of diabetes and high blood pressure because those are things that my mom dealt with, and because I know, like with diabetes, I've always been on the edge. Right. So I've had to be mindful of that, and then with high blood pressure, I've been taking high blood pressure medicine for years to stabilize. Luckily, the low dose that he started me on is fine and it stabilizes everything, but just being aware that things can change. There again, those random aches and pains and
and then you start to focus on a lot of your supplements, your vitamins. You start going through the vitamin aisle. I spend a lot of time on the vitamin aisle now when I go to like Walmart and stuff like, I need some zinc. Do I need some apple cider vinegar gummies or something like that?
Or we see a video or a post or something and think, I need that.
Yeah, that sounds good. I need some energy. But those are the kind of things, you just think about in your 20s. Things you don't think about in your 30s. And I know for me, like I said, where I work at, a lot of the men are older, so it's not just the sexual issues, but I'm hearing guys 10 years older than me having hips and knees replaced, and start thinking about stuff like that, like trying to hold on to my stuff, but that's hard too, to balance in the things you're supposed to do with earlier conversation, you and your schedule make it difficult to make a habit out of those things. And exactly.
I can't use my schedule as an excuse. So what I do is I just use your schedule as my excuse. Yes. So I didn't go work out today because you were at work.
Because I was at work.
Yes.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. Hey, ain't nothing wrong with that. Let's do what we have to do. But I mean, that's just the reality of them 40s, man. It's like, I remember when I was a kid thinking like somebody would say they were 30, and I was like, dang, that's old. But now that I'm at 40, I'm like,
at 40?
I ain't old.
At 40?
Well, 40s.
Oh, you are well past 40.
Like, dang, that ain't old. All of a sudden, 50 don't seem that old to me now.
It doesn't. It's
60
right around
don't really
the corner.
seem that old to me. I'm looking forward to I'm looking forward to seeing 70s and 80s.
I want to see them. I'm not quite looking forward. I want to get there. Mm-hmm. I don't know if looking forward to is the right.
It's not the right.
Not for me. Not for me. I'm still holding on to the last bit of 40s that I have.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna hold on to that big 50 come. Then I have to shift my focus, as they say. Shift my focus. Just hope I don't have to get nothing replaced.
Yep.
Man, I've lived all this time without any major surgery, so hey. One thing I'm for sure, especially being a black man, I'm gonna make sure that I'm going to the doctor like I need to.
Yeah.
Catching a lot of stuff early, because
right.
that's one of the biggest problems in our community. Catching that stuff. I've seen guys, go through pains for years, and then all of a sudden it's a diagnosis, and it's like
that's one thing I've always been. I stay on you about. Like when the kids were younger, I mean, you can't leave me with all these kids, but I'm aware of things like that also. And now for myself, like I said, I know that there are certain things that run in my family. And so I try to be mindful of those things. I have some long-standing health issues that, things that I had to be mindful of throughout life. But now that I'm older, I'm even more mindful of and try to stay on top of. So it's definitely an experience. But I can say that the wisdom that comes along with it.
Yes, definitely. The wisdom.
The wisdom and the ability to just let stuff roll off your back and keep going.
Yep.
The not caring, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Which I've always been that way, but it's a little bit magnified now.
Yeah, definitely.
Because my focus stays on our little circle. So.
Yep, and that's what it is. For us, we have evolved as a spiritual people. Both of us have arrived at our spiritual journey at the same time, and that has helped us get through some things. I know losing your mother is kind of like an eye-opener for us. And then, when I lost my mother, we were kind of almost there, as far as like getting an understanding. So that helped us grow closer. As people used to say, we're not unequally yoked. We yoke together,
Yep.
But so for me, let's see, I've been at my job, it'll be 22 years.
Yeah. Yep.
Same job. 22 years.
Yep. And this is, next school year will be year 19 for me.
19. Wow.
Yep.
Damn, it's been 19 years since you said that.
Yep.
Wow.
Right.
Reflection is crazy, y'all, when y'all start thinking about this thing.
Yep.
And, we both came to a conclusion probably about 2 years ago. It actually took us
a year to
Took us over a year to actually do it.
Yep.
But we both came to the conclusion that we wanted to share our journey with those who care to hear it. And thus we created this podcast and our YouTube channel, Beyond I Do Podcast. And
I'm going to start focusing on...
we're starting to focus on, our life after, because, and other endeavors that are going to help us retire early and get to the point where we can help others, through this journey of life.
Yep.
And become self-sufficient, self-employed. So that's the next step that we're on to. So it's been a journey, y'all, and we love it, and we love each other. We like and we love each other.
Yep. And
the sex is phenomenal. The best that it has ever been. What you say about that, babe?
I concur.
You concur? All right. Now let's discuss it.
For our topic, we'll be discussing an article from everydayhealth.com called The 7 Stages of Marriage.
Stage number 1, the honeymoon phase. The honeymoon phase lasts from after the wedding up to a year or two. The honeymoon phase is also characterized by passion, sexual intimacy, and infatuation.
Our honeymoon phase was a little bit different.
Yeah, because
we had...
You was pregnant, but
Well, baby.
Yeah, we had baby.
Yeah. I almost feel like we skipped over that honeymoon phase because I couldn't be infatuated with you trying to care for the newborn.
Yeah, we got it in. I mean,
yes, you've made that very clear.
We got it in. I mean,
you've made that.
We did get it
so
in.
Clear.
I mean, I think it was different being that we had a child because, of course, there wasn't the time to adjust together.
Right.
Was not very long at all. It was a week. Right. And that was it. It was children from then on out. So
it was, and that year, we were, because that was the official us go together time. Yeah. And so we had that before, but after the wedding, it was.
We living together. We had our apartment. It was us day in and day out. Yeah. So, and that brings us to number 2, the adjustment phase.
So the adjustment phase is when the honeymoon is over.
That's right. That's right.
And things start getting real. Mm-hmm. That newness of the relationship is gone, and you start to see things in your partner that may make you question if you have made a mistake. Mm-hmm. You have other responsibilities that come into play. Yep. So your relationship may take a back seat. Yep. And once you move through that, that's where I feel like we started. Because it was, we had the honeymoon phase really before we got married when we were dating.
Yeah, that's true.
And then once we got married, we had the baby. It was straight into that. Yeah. What have I done with my life? Yep. That type of thing.
And I think too, being in our early 20s, you're looking at most people we knew at the time. They weren't married. No. They were still single, or they were still in school, or they were still, most of them were still in school. So it's like, well, you almost kind of think dang, man, did I do the right thing? Right. Did I make the right decision?
Yep. We had some friends who were a few years older, and that's who we started to gravitate towards because they had kids. They were established. Yeah. Mm-hmm. My cousin and her husband. Yeah. So we gravitated towards people who were a little bit older because they were at that point. Mm-hmm. Yep. And then there's phase 3.
The Great Escape. That lasts after 3 years or so. Generally during that time, couples may begin to have power struggles. And then that old 7-year itch starts occurring, and that's one of them phases. And dangers of infidelity are high due to conflicts and frustration.
I think we got to that early. I think that we got to that kind of early, and like we said in the earlier in the episode, we went through those things before 7 years, definitely before 10 years, and then that put us on the path to be resilient with the other stuff that was coming.
Yep. Oh boy, did it come.
Stage 4, the reassessment phase. This is late into that first decade or beginning to move into the second decade, where both parties have matured a bit. A lot of times that's due to having kids. And so you feel like you want to model and be an example of good behavior. Yeah. Also, you become more comfortable with each other as a couple. So you tend to look at things differently. You kind of reprioritize things.
I think for us, I know that being comfortable with each other, like I said, we did all that stuff in previous phases. And then it was like, at that point, we were comfortable with each other, and we leaned on each other a lot more because, every situation, I think, I'm not saying every situation, but I think the majority of the situations, the majority of our life has been abnormal from other family structures. So we've had to kind of lean on each other because, not many people understood, we adopted this teenager.
Right.
It's people, we knew people that had kids, but then everybody didn't. Many people understand, I adopted this child. This child has run away.
Right.
So, and trying to find that support other than family was a struggle.
Right. Even like our age, because we were young parents.
That too.
So that kind of isolated us in a way. Being a young black couple with kids.
Yeah.
And I remember one time saying to my mom how people would, like, they would stare at us, or we would have random people come up and talk to us, and she said, y'all are an abnormality.
Yeah.
And it's sad to say that, but I mean, there's not many, we just didn't have many people around us who were our age, who had gone through some of the same things. So we learned to rely on each other. And if I come to you and tell you I'm feeling this way about this, I don't have to worry about you judging me.
Yeah.
Because you're in the situation and you know how that feels. Whereas outside people, always have their, well, if it was me type thing. But if you haven't gone through it, how do you know what you would do?
Exactly.
And that brings us to phase 5.
Growing together phase. All right. This usually is around the second or third decade, seen as a second opportunity to rediscover each other. And many couples have vow renewals and second honeymoons during this phase as a way to recommit to each other. Growing together phase. I think that was probably our early 40s. Kind of like the realization, we have been going through all that we have gone through, and okay, we didn't kind of made it through the difficult stuff. So now it's like, adjusting to us.
Yeah. The kids older.
Kids are grown now.
So we can focus on us. And I think that's one thing. If a couple gets married and then they have time before having kids, they have that time to be married and to enjoy each other, and we didn't necessarily have that time. And so now we get that time to be a couple, and we can travel and do things together that a lot of people do before having kids. I keep saying I want to have a vow renewal ceremony at some point, but that keeps getting pushed and changed. But I sense that it may be coming soon.
You sense that it may be coming soon?
Yeah.
All right. As long as it ain't $112,000.
It will not be.
All right, number 6, midlife strife. Whew.
So this is the point where midlife crisis can occur. There are biological and emotional changes going on in both partners.
You're here.
You feel like the best years have passed. That's one that I struggle with. You begin to think more seriously about retirement and what's next. And this phase can be very difficult, but if it's a couple who has a strong commitment to each other going into it, it's easier to move through. I think
this is definitely where we at.
Yes. The best years, I used to say I would lust for the past because I felt like I felt like I wish I had have known this then, because now it's too late. That type of thinking. So that's something that I'm having to work through, and having to understand that time is just time. It's not a limitation. In terms of what you can do or whatever.
Right.
The midlife crisis, I've been accused of going through a midlife crisis, but I guess
What was that?
Huh?
What was that?
What was it?
Yeah.
It was you telling me, asking me, are you going through a midlife crisis or something?
Oh, yeah, I did.
Which, by the way, gentlemen, don't say that.
No.
Don't ask your wife that. Don't say that. It's never a good time to ask your wife if she is going through a midlife crisis.
Because you'll be hearing it 5 years later. Like me. But you started thinking about retirement. You started thinking about how the later years are gonna be. As far as us doing this podcast has got us to think about, okay, what opportunities are available besides continuing to work on our jobs. Till we're in our 60s.
Right.
What things that we can do now to alter that.
That's also an odd thing about being in your 40s, because of course you're closer to the traditional retirement age, but you're still far away from it. But then at the same time, like if I think back 20 years ago to my 20s, that seems like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, exactly.
But I bet getting 20 years farther is going to go in a flash. It's just an odd time.
Yeah, it is. And because of where I work, it's guys I'm talking to, guys that I work with, and they're like, well, I'm going to retire in about 5 years. I'm going to retire in about 7 years. And when they say stuff like that, in my mind, I'm thinking, dang, I got 17 more years. Before I'm the age. Do I want to sit here for 17 more years? So, it's that time of reflecting on, okay, what do I want to be doing at 62? Do I want to sit there and be doing this at 62, or do I want to do other things?
And that brings us to the final stage, which we are, I think that we might be on the cusp of it. Maybe we're hitting this one a little bit early, because I can feel parts of it.
Yeah. And that is the fulfillment phase, where we are reflecting on our past and thankful to have had partners to share this with, having each other, and content with our partner, and no thoughts of being with anyone else. I know nobody else.
I know. You don't have the energy to start over.
Anyway, it just, that's not it. Not just that, but there is no replacing you in my life. I mean, that's just not gonna happen. I mean, I don't see that. And then falling in love again, which we have done. Need I mind you?
Oh God.
That the sex is amazing. And being satisfied with being with each other. Yep. Just the time that we have to spend together, like today.
Yeah.
That was enjoyable. I was working on the car and you sat out there with me.
Yeah.
And, I remember years and that couldn't happen because, you had kids now, so you had projects going, you had other things going, and you brought your project out there to sit out there with me. So that was definitely great. And we're going to have more years of that.
Yes, we are.
I may not be able to sit on the ground and get on the car.
Don't say that.
But I'll be
Don't say
Working
that.
through the hood.
No. So we are working on our summer bodies.
That's right. Going to the gym tomorrow, y'all.
Don't know what summer. Might not be this one. Might not be next one. But some summer. Y'all better be ready for it.
We'll have a hot boy and girl summer. In a couple years. It's going to be hot.
All right. That's it. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Beyond I Do podcast.
Please make sure to follow us on Facebook and IG, and also on our YouTube channel, the Beyond I Do podcast.
Till next time.
We will holla at y'all.